Today's guest is Dena DeRose, master jazz pianist and singer, jazz educator, and overall wise and very fun person. She's performed in New York clubs since the early 90s, played at festivals and concerts throughout the world, is the leader on 12 albums, 3 of which are Grammy nominated, and she currently lives in Graz, Austria, where she's the jazz vocal director at one of the top universities in Europe. We hope you enjoy this episode chock full of Dena's personal stories, musings, and wisdom, along with useful information, tips for music students, and so much more. Welcome to Meaningful Musical Conversations, where words are music, hearts are melodies, and harmony is our vision. I'm Jill Meunier.
And I'm Daniel Townsend. Thank you once again for joining into the podcast today. Today on this beautiful Wednesday morning, we have a woman by the name of Dena DeRose, who came all the way out here today from, she drove from
San Francisco
today. That's right. So we appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
It means
we
a ton
to us. We are thrilled.
Absolutely, yeah.
And originally, actually, Dena is from Binghamton, New York, but close by to where I actually grew up in Syracuse. But she's been living in Graz, Austria for...
Going on 14 years.
Going on 14 years, wow.
And before that, New York City for about 16 years, yeah.
Okay, great. And in New York City, actually, just to go quickly back to that, when did you actually move from Binghamton to New York?
In 1990.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was 25.
Wow.
I had wanted to move there sooner, but some issues with my hand came up, and I had to have a few operations, and I was just a pianist then. And during those, couple of years, about a year and a half to 2.5 years, I studied some voice and started singing jazz, and as my right hand I had both operations and completely sort of healed up, and I could start playing again. I just sort of put the two together, had to pay doctor bills, so I just got some steady work in my hometown area to try and get some of that paid off before moving to New York. So, and I think I moved to New York with about $600 in my pocket.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
wow.
I just couldn't wait to get there. So I was like, once a lot of it was, and even the doctor bills weren't really fully paid off.
Yeah.
I was still paying, and probably for another year or two while I lived in New York.
So I'm wondering what kind of work would pay well enough to actually pay off doctor bills? Because you were working
$100 gigs.
Yeah.
That's about what it was. So
back then?
Yeah.
Which actually is not, compared to honestly like what I see that at some of our really nice venues here, and the top Bay Area musicians are only getting $100 per gig each.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, most of my gigs paid $75 to $125.
Okay.
Then all the steady work.
Yeah.
Some of it was $150, depending on what it was. But
sweet.
But then you could also have a tip jar.
Yes.
And being a solo piano player singer, I wasn't really doing the sing along around the piano kind of thing that much. I had to do it a few times for a few people.
Okay.
Right.
Not like advertised that way. I was really just doing jazz and building my repertoire of the Great American Songbook and jazz standards, and I could work a lot then. I don't know if that's the same now in New York City. It's
from what I've read, articles in the Village. What do you call that? The main paper there, the Village. I want to say the Village Voice. Even the top. I know Linda Mahon O actually was featured in this article talking about how hard it is, even for somebody like that, a major, player in New York, so well recognized and well known at that time, to make it. Yeah. And I've talked to, actually, when I was at Stanford Jazz last summer, I talked to a couple of people there also about how difficult it was for them. One of the top bass players is really, so that's troublesome, honestly, to me.
I know that there's a top drummer who's getting financial assistance from the Jazz Foundation at the moment because he can't pay his rent and all that stuff. And he's one of the top. Yeah. I'm
crazy.
not going to mention a name,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah,
know
of
it.
course.
Yeah.
Right.
And many of them get assistance. I mean,
Yeah.
Barry Harris does, and all these older musicians get the funding or
Mm-hmm.
help,
Yeah.
financial help from the Jazz Foundation from
Sounds
New
like-
York. So, yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I didn't have insurance. They canceled me when I wanted my major operations on my hand, and because of pre-existing condition
terrible.
back then.
That's terrible.
And so I had to pay it all off. But I had doctors, at least the second doctor, the major one down in New York, where I had an arthritic joint fused, and a major thing. He knew, and he worked with a lot of musicians. He says, you pay what you can when you can. So I just put it in my mind, I'm going to give him $100 a month.
Yeah.
And then if I could do 2 or 150,
yeah.
and I really went to the office with cash, because that's what we got paid in.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I just went.
There you go, Doc.
I was
Yeah.
a little embarrassed, but even the secretaries knew us, the ones that
Yep.
didn't have
course.
insurance.
Yeah.
And I just go in with my head down, and she'd go, "Thank you so much,"
gosh.
and write me a little receipt, and then I had all my receipts. And it took a couple of years to pay 16 grand off. So,
Wow.
back
Oh
then.
my God!
Wow.
Bless your heart. Wow.
So, but I had understanding physicians that were sort of, it's like karma, karma medicine or whatever,
Yes.
karma
totally.
practice for them, and they make enough on everybody else,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
insurance companies.
Right.
Sure
But they
do.
could do that.
Yes.
And
Wow.
he loved musicians.
Wow. Shouts out to that.
Yeah,
doctor
really.
then. That's really.
Dr. Eaton.
There we
Dr.
are.
Eaton.
Dr.
Yeah,
Eaton.
shouts out to
Yeah, thank you.
anybody that we want.
Yeah.
That we want
Yeah.
to hear
He's
that
now
shout out.
retired, but has a great guy taking over for him. So.
Wow.
Wonderful. Well, I am just thrilled that your hands recuperated,
Yes.
Dena.
Yes,
You know,
me
and
too.
I just want to say how we met was basically 3 years ago. When you came to do a house concert of all things, about 10 minutes from my house here in Sebastopol at Ernie Shelton's house. And we want to just give a huge shout out to Ernie
Yes.
and his house concerts. We
Are
love you, Ernie.
fabulous.
And Susan, thank you so much as well.
Yes.
It's a really a beautiful, intimate little room upstairs with a beautiful piano and about room for 70 people. And 3 years ago, I was absolutely delighted and floored to attend that concert and just hear you just kill it with your singing and playing. And then I was inspired to take the jazz workshop with you
Stanford.
at Stanford a year ago, summer, the vocal track. And you and Madeline Eastman, and again, shout out to Maddie.
Yeah, Maddie.
And
She's great.
fantastic experience. So back to actually just a little bit of your background. So we jumped into, some things kind of quickly here,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure that everybody knows, who you are and what you've been up to. So Dena is just an incredible, actually, you say pianist first and then singer as kind of,
I was first a
You
pianist.
were first.
But, I mean, these days, I tend to say vocalist pianist
Mm-hmm.
because I have put a lot of effort into voice along
Yeah.
with, I mean, if I think about it, I started piano at 3 years old, 3 and a half, when I finally had a teacher. And I didn't really start singing until I was about 13. And I was singing in a wedding band, and I could not sing. I could not sing
That's
in
hard to
tune.
imagine.
I could not. I mean, it was all breathy and nasally. Oh, I was awful. Right.
Oh, my
But they
goodness.
wanted somebody to sing in our
Right.
little 13. We were all 13 and 14 and 15 years old.
Wow.
yeah.
And we had like 2 or 3 weddings a weekend.
Wow.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was really great. It was a kids band. Everybody, that's the popular
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
then. And so we were really busy, but I didn't want to sing. So it was like maybe 4 or 5 songs the whole time, because we did upstate New York. We did
Yeah.
polkas.
Okay.
We did waltzes and foxtrots, and then cha-chas and
Sure.
tangos, and,
Wow.
and of course the pop music of the day, like
Covered it
"Don't It
all.
Make My Brown Eyes Blue."
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
"Funky Town" and all
Yep,
those.
yeah.
I know those tunes. I
So,
love those
yeah,
tunes.
those
yeah.
were sort of not that hard to sing, but I still wasn't a singer.
Sure.
And I didn't consider myself one. I just had to do it
Wow.
because I was in these bands.
Yeah.
And it progressed that way for the next some years. And all in pop bands and Grateful Dead tribute bands
Sure.
and all-female rock bands. And I always was sort of the backup singer in all those. They
Yeah.
had a lead singer. So.
Gotcha.
But they asked me to, and I always grumbled. I don't want to sing. I want to just play,
Yeah.
I didn't really want to sing.
I
And
can relate
then
to
the
that.
hands started
The hand
being
thing.
weird, and so I thought one night okay, I sat in singing, and they clapped, and they said, "Sing another one." I'm like, anyhow.
Yeah.
So, but it sort of, it really made me feel a part of the music again, because I had really taken a bit of a 6-month hiatus.
Now, were you going to clubs at that time during your 6-month hiatus, or were you
Yeah, to
like
drink,
Get through
hear
that.
music, and
Yeah.
get depressed because I wasn't up there.
Right, right.
And I stopped. But this one night I went in and I sat in singing, and I sort of felt really a warmth in my heart and like a part of something.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was playing piano. I took a few lessons with him, jazz, when I was in classical college, at college, but didn't really take too many lessons at all with him because he smoked a lot, lessons two going at one time, and he was a sort of rough, tough kind of older guy, and didn't really relate. He told me one time, "Why don't you just study classical?" And it sort of hurt me, so I stopped. So then I really took a hiatus, and one night I just said, "I'm going to sing." So I took some vocal lessons, and yeah. Wow. Then the rest is history. But where were we going with that again?
Well, we were talking
Just what you're
about,
up to today.
what you're up to, and what you're actually, just so people know, you performed in New York City and all these amazing clubs that we know. Do you want to say anything?
Well,
about
I mean,
that?
two wonderful. There are a lot of wonderful clubs in New York, and one of them I have 2 live recordings from. It's at Jazz Standard,
Yes,
live
I
at
know
Jazz
them.
Standard, and
Great albums.
Yeah, the only one that it's still on my dream list is the Village Vanguard. It's one I have not played. I think I've played almost all the other ones, but yeah,
It's coming
someday.
soon. It's coming
So,
soon.
well, I don't know. There aren't too many singers there, so we'll
Gotcha.
see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I still love New York.
Yeah. Oh, God, absolutely. And then after that, then you ended up going, getting this amazing job in Graz as the vocal director of the jazz program,
Jazz Voice,
the
yeah.
Jazz Voice program.
Yeah, well, I'm the only one there. That's sort of a small institute. Well, small. We have 120 students from 30 different countries.
Wow.
It's the oldest jazz institute in Europe. Started in '64. And the vocal program didn't start until the late 80s, around 88, 89. And Sheila Jordan started that.
She did?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
she started it, and she would do a semester. It was more workshop style, some private lessons. I think they probably had 10 or 15 singers there.
Okay.
And so Sheila would do a semester, then she'd bring over Mark Murphy and do a semester, and then Jay Clayton, and Michelle Hendricks, and Andy Bay. So they would take turns with semesters through the years until it became a university.
Okay. Wow.
In the early 2000s. And Lori from the...
Antonelli?
Antonioli.
Antonioli, yes.
I think that's how you say it.
Antonioli.
I hope, Lori.
Yes,
it's
hi,
always
Lori.
a twist in my mind. I have to remember it. But at the jazz school here.
Yes.
She was in Graz before me.
Oh, really? Wow.
And when it became a university, they wanted someone to take a 5-year contract. And she said, I want to go home. She just didn't feel right there. And she didn't want to audition for the position. So there were about 5 other people auditioning, and they offered me the position, and I moved. And it was probably the best move I made ever. I mean, other than moving to New York.
Yeah.
They're like the top 2 in my life. So,
So what was it like when you first moved there and you were in this new country and...
different. I mean, I had so much work back in New York and already a year's worth booked around Europe also, so that I would be teaching 3 days a week in Graz, and then I wasn't there. That was it. I was just there to teach the first year or 2. It was really quite a long transition.
Okay.
A lot of traveling, and it was really, I got a little burnt out, like physically. My body just got a little tired from running and running.
Yes.
Yeah, so I had to, learn to slow down a little bit, but
You look like you're still trotting everywhere.
I know.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, learning to take care of the body.
Yes.
A little bit. And living there, the high quality of life is similar to the Northwest out here. I live in an area where there's a walking path right on my street, and
lovely.
a little village with and electric bikes and a little lake, and and you just try to get some exercise
Yeah.
and keep the circulation going,
Yeah.
and also, eat right. We have
Yeah.
high quality food there, regional.
Yes.
So it's been a good few years to get myself back sort of in the shape mentally and physically that I want to be in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also to learn, it takes a while to learn how to say yes and no to certain gigs and
That is the truth.
take your time off and all that. Yeah. But it's still hard.
Yeah.
To say yes.
Probably
And most
always.
of the gigs are really fun now, and they're really good. So
Yeah.
it's like hard to say no.
Why not?
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, if there's one thing, man, I can tell you, Dena, when when I'm listening to you perform, you are just like pure joy up there. And I went to your performance the other night, and I swear it was like I was in this timeless place, and it was just unbelievable. And your voice, I don't know how you do it, like the way that you scat as you're soloing with your right hand is really amazing. It's just
You can
doubling
sing it,
that
you
voice.
can play it. And that's, I do a lot of workshops with that. In fact, I may be doing an online, I am. It's going to be in September.
Oh, wow.
On the
I'm
15th, it's going to be a live stream, and you sign up for it, and that's going to be one of the topics.
Oh, my God.
Cool.
You can sing it, you can play it.
Oh, I'm
Totally.
excited.
So,
I'm excited about that.
Many other titles. It'll be a lot of question and answer from whoever signs up, and I guess it's really like interactive.
Neat.
So
Now, wait-
Webnair, I think it's
Yeah.
Oh, Webnair.
Webnair,
It's not through Jazz Heaven?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is through jazzheaven.com. Okay,
Yeah.
because I just saw that advertisement, actually. Oh, well, congratulations. That is really neat.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be
Boy.
interesting. I've never done anything like that, so
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I just hope there are a lot of questions and answers so I can have some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, I know this is kind of a strange thing, but how do you recover from, like, I know you're flying to Israel, you go to Tokyo. How do you deal with a jet lag?
Over the years, it gets less, I think.
Really?
Yeah. If I don't travel for, say, I'm home roughly on an average 2 to 4 weeks at home. Usually it's about 2, if not 10 days. It's every other weekend or so I'm out, and I teach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday there. Or now it'll be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And starting in October, I took on another teaching position in Italy, and it's a teaching master's level at Siena University. And that's one of the other really good universities in Europe. So that'll be 3 days a month,
Okay.
which doesn't sound like much, but with the schedule of every week at the other school, that means there's going to be probably somewhere in the middle of every month, 9 days in a row teaching.
Oh, my God.
But I have to say, in Graz, I have great students, and I think it'll be an interesting experience in Italy. So, besides, just as I said, I try to say no, but how can you say no?
Can you do that?
Yeah,
Oh,
these
man.
great opportunities.
And you try to make it work.
Oh,
Yeah.
And you
gosh.
physically have to get your sleep and eat
Yeah.
well and,
Yeah.
and make it work.
Yeah. Boy, even at the jazz workshop, I was so aware of just, it was a very packed schedule. I was so aware of just like every food choice, like, going to bed. And of course, we had the vocal jam that started at midnight.
No, at
Yes.
10.
Oh, did it?
10
Okay, well.
till midnight.
Okay, 10
It
till
finished
midnight.
at midnight.
Well, in my mind, it was like
Yeah.
midnight because I go to bed at 10.
Well, when you're getting up at 7:30 in the morning to get to a 9 o'clock theory class.
Yeah.
Seems like it's midnight.
Yeah, so that was really something. Yeah.
Yeah, Stanford's fun. It's like school in a way. There are other camps that make it seem like more jazz camp.
Right.
But Stanford, I think, has a good balance. Sort of, they give you enough time in the evening off to go to a concert or just hang out or practice.
Yeah.
But it's on Stanford,
Right,
so it's
right.
sort of school,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so Dena, I wanted to actually ask you about this, kind of going back to the beginning of this. It seems like performance is your main, like the thing that you really love to do, right? Performance is kind of where your heart lies, right? In teaching.
Teaches,
performance.
well, no, performance teaches me
Right.
what to
Gotcha.
teach.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's hand in hand. I couldn't just teach and not perform. And I don't know if I could just perform and not teach, but probably.
Right. Well, that's
but
yeah,
I love
exactly.
teaching.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like the balance. I like I mean, only performing, I think it would get very tiring physically
Sure.
because you have to travel so much.
Yeah.
So at least I have a home base. And one school, when I lived in New York, I was teaching in about almost 6 or 7 different universities,
Wow.
adjunct, you know.
Right.
My main school was Purchase College, and the other one was Hart up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hart School of Music. And the rest, New School, Manhattan, that was on a list. You know, New York University, Long Island University, Queens College. And students could just look at a list and say, I want to study with this person, and they come to your apartment.
Wow.
So that was
Whoa.
okay, but
Neat.
it was chaotic.
Yeah.
Trying to keep track of who from what school and what semester are they in, and blah, blah. It was really a lot to deal with besides doing 7 to 14 gigs a week,
Oh my God.
you know, back then.
Yep.
Wow.
So now when I do like, you know, maybe, 5 to 7 gigs a month and still have a good number of 3 days a week teaching,
Yeah.
for me, it's a pretty good balance. It feels good for now.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds
Who knows in 10 or 12 years when I have to
Right.
retire from that job. Let's see. But,
So, was your first performance sort of back in the wedding band that you were doing as a kid?
the first performance, well, I did recitals, of course,
performances.
as a little
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 to 8-year-old.
Yes.
Did you
And
did you like them? Did you like doing
I
recitals?
was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I had a stage mom,
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
and she was tough, and I was very shy. I didn't say much. I was almost mute. And I think I was either 8 or 10 or 9, something like that. I had my first paying gig, and that was on the organ because I'd switched from piano to organ for a while. And I played for our local Binghamton Dusters, which was a hockey team.
Nice.
And I played for their event party at the end, and I just sat there playing and everybody's having wine and cheese. But after that, I got to go into the arena once in a while and go boom, 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 on the organ, you know,
Yeah.
as the game is going
Oh,
on. Because I
wow.
knew the organ. He was actually one of my teachers
Okay.
that played for it. So he'd have me
Wow.
come up and just sit, and once in a while he'd say, come on up here.
Oh.
And I was like, you know, really small too. And I'd just sit there and do the
Yeah.
little
That's
pedal
amazing.
thing
Oh,
and
cute.
put a chord down. It was really fun.
Whoa.
If they
Wow.
made a score,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
and, you know, just get the people clapping. It
Oh
was
my
really
gosh.
fun.
I always thought that'd be a
Can
really
just see
cool
it.
Yeah.
position to be in. It's one of those.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really, really fun. And I
Oh,
also played
neat.
church organ. So I think starting at around 12, and that paid $15 a show.
So,
No.
so did, yeah, I hear you.
$15 a mass, yeah. And it was always, you know, the Saturday morning at 6 in the morning mass.
Oh, my gosh.
Because none of the adults wanted to get up, so they sent me, you know, and so I'd go 6 in the morning. But by 13, I started doing weddings. And, you know, you do a wedding until midnight or 1 in the morning, and my father would stay up and help me pack up the station wagon with all my equipment and bring me home, and 4 hours later, I wake up and go do church mass. So, I mean, I really wanted to be a part of all music, anywhere, any kind.
Yeah.
You know, I played almost every style of music. Wow. When I first moved to New York, I was actually doing keyboard parts for Queen Latifah and Guru and 45 King and all these sort of rap artists at the time. So,
Wow.
you know, it was just, I just wanted to be a part of all
Yeah.
music all the time.
Totally.
In high school, part of the chorus, I played the piano for them, played percussion from 5 until I graduated high school, from 5th grade, until graduating high school, mainly timpani and mallet percussion. I was in the state whatever, and the Binghamton Youth Symphony, and whatever I could dabble in, you know, everything. And then in school, I was in the stage band and the concert band, the marching band, and the choir, and just everything. And I also played sports, but by 10th grade, I had to decide because it was already like I was
a
missing
lot.
practice for rehearsals and whatever. So,
Hard to balance.
yeah.
That.
And so a lot of that all was part of performance, though. I mean, even in high school, the stage bands, the marching bands, it's all about performance, you know?
Yes.
So that, I think it all led to when becoming a jazz artist, it's, you know, you're either going to, you know, stay in your studio and just record yourself and try and sell your CDs, or a lot of people like to perform. So I think a lot of the other styles of music that I had to perform in, it really helped me know how to. And a lot of that music, connects with an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So when it came to jazz, I mean, this is the music I do. The music I love, and thankfully, it is a way to connect to an audience. Because some of the more modern music it's a little difficult for the audience to connect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, and I do play it. I even play free improv on piano. But for me, still, when I do my project, it's how I connect best with an audience, I guess, at this point in the game.
Yeah.
Definitely. So far, that's been a reoccurring theme with the guests on here.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I just stick to my guns, because, I mean, I try to write. I do write. I don't do that many compositions on my recordings or gigs, but I write more now, and I have a couple originals coming up on the next CD that's going to be recorded October 1st and 2nd in New York on High Note.
Can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah.
It's going to be your 11th or 12th CD
As a leader,
as a leader.
12th, I think, or 13th.
Wow.
I did a few in Japan that just you can't get anymore because they went out of print. Who knows? And one in Italy, a duo with Marvin Stamm that's out of print. Some people have them. If you look on eBay, sometimes you find people that want to get rid of things.
I'm going to task my husband with that. He's really good with that.
Some people find them, and I'm like, how did you find that? And like somebody found my very first CD as a leader on Sharp. It was not even on Sharp 9 Records yet. It was the first label, Almosea, and it's a different cover than most people have, and it's really one of the original ones. And someone said it was going for like $250. I don't know. This was years ago, but I don't know.
Wow,
some people just think they can get money for that.
Sure.
And I'm sure they
And
didn't
they
get
can.
$250.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
they.
good.
No, but there are very few of those left. So you can sometimes you can find them. People want to get rid of them.
Neat. So I was curious. I'm curious about how you feel when you are done performing. Like, some people get like kind of amp up. I know some performers, they kind of like amp up and it's really exciting. And then there's this huge roller coaster down and kind of like they feel sad and like have a hard time. Or for me, honestly, even though I haven't done that many gigs yet, but I tend to feel like really excited and have a hard time coming down. Like the energy is like really high. So I'm wondering what your experience is and how you manage your energy.
Yeah, I believe everybody's different with this. There's a general plot of people in some of the categories, but I think for me, I've just performed so much that I do get ramped up after. I have it's good energy.
Yeah.
And I don't really come down that much. I think years ago, maybe I did, but only if I didn't have like another gig in the next day or two,
I hear you.
or 3 or 4. There's been, I have to say, I had some people think coming down off something is a bad thing, or they think of it as a depression.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, and for me, through the years, people would say that, and I think, oh, I guess I'm depressed, a little. But then I think, but what's the opposite of depression? I mean, in one opposite. Relaxed. I mean, if you think the positive,
Yes.
what else could you say? I guess maybe when you're depressed, your body's relaxed. I don't know.
Yeah,
But like maybe I'm not mentally depressed. It's just that I'm physically relaxed now,
Yes.
so that I can get ready for the next gig.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've tried to flip around things like nervousness. I used to get nervous, but it's more about getting excited and anticipating such fun with whom I'm playing with and the conversations we're going to have.
Yes.
And the audience will have, and the whole energy of the room and all that. So through the years, it took me a little while to flip that ball around.
Yeah.
But now with the after effect, I think I'm ramped up, and when I come down, I just see it as, okay, it's time to just relax now and prepare for the next one, because I tend to keep busy.
You do. You
So
do.
whether it's going to do a workshop, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter if it's going to do another performance or not. But maybe it's even I get home on a Saturday from a night or Sunday morning from a performance somewhere in Italy, and then I have to teach on Monday.
Yeah.
I really try to relax that day and get good rest, and then it's sort of exciting. I go back to teaching.
Right.
I like my students, so they're
Yeah.
good people.
Yay.
We enjoy each other's time, I think, most of us do.
Beautiful. That's
and yeah, so and that's another adrenaline. When I come home from teaching, I'm pumped up on the drive home, but when I get home, I'm tired.
Yep.
Because teaching is a different energy.
Yeah.
And one-on-one teaching takes a lot of energy, even if the student is motivated. You have to keep it moving for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to do that for 4 or 5 times each day.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot of energy output. But I also get a lot from them because I learn. You know, it's just like a feed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeds both ways. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of, this is always fun to talk about, performance rituals or anything that you kind of take with you as far as how you prepare for your kind of show days or anything like that? Maybe something people can maybe pick up on to take with them for when they're performing. Just anything you've picked up along the way.
Well, sometimes it's hard, you know, when you're traveling. You don't know too much of where you're going to be, what it's like.
Right. What's the gear like? What's, the venue
sometimes,
like?
I fly, and even just from Austria to Spain, I'll get there, and it's still, people think you just pop over to Spain. It takes a couple hours. No. Like everything takes at least 6 or 8 hours. By the time you go to the airport, blah, 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 get in, check in, security. It just takes time, right? And so sometimes you get there, and you might be staying at this hotel that's on a circle near a shopping center, and there's like no green anywhere, nowhere to park, no park to walk in. And so I'm walking around the parking lot, getting my steps in, or up and down the stairs in the hotel, and they don't have a gym because it's just a motel. and in like 2 hours you have to go to the gig.
Yeah.
So, you do that, and I try to lay down for 10 minutes. And usually when I'm traveling, I've learned to take a nap for 10 minutes. I may lay there for 20, but at some point I try to just breathe and exhale long and do sort of the body, yoga. I relax my feet, I relax my legs, and within 5 minutes, I'm almost out. And really, I set the alarm for 10 or 15 minutes, and that 10 or 15 minutes gives me so much more energy than an hour sleep.
There it is.
I totally hear you.
So that's
a great tip.
Yeah, if I need it, that's a good, and then I shower, get ready, and we're ready for the gig.
Yeah. And, I want to just point out that you just mentioned that you use a timer. And I think that's really important because I think that a lot of people, they take a rest, but they're kind of nervous. Oh, am I going to remember? And they don't set a timer. So even if it's in the middle of the day and even if it's not about a gig or something, I think using a timer for that little rest is comfort because then you can really let go and you know that you're not going to sleep through what you need to do.
That's exactly it. I know that it's going to wake me up, so I need to get to sleep.
Right, I need to do this.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's
great.
So, that reminds me, I know that that you have a yoga teacher, your partner that you've been with for 10 years, I think, is actually a yoga teacher that teaches at Graz and as part of the jazz vocal program.
Yes.
So can you talk about that and some of the benefits that you think the students receive or that you hear the students receive or that you see that the students
all of the above.
receive from that?
Yeah. When I moved there 14 years ago, there was a class under the vocal umbrella called Stage Presence and Body Works or something like that. And Annette Giesriegel was teaching that. And mainly she was working with them, they were doing singing an a cappella piece, and she would work on trying to get them to relax. And the yoga wasn't really even a huge part of it yet. I think the second year I was there, after the first year, we talked about it. And I suggested, you're a yoga teacher. She had just gotten her certification from, I believe, in the Haight. She may have gotten it. No, where was it? Grass Valley? No, I forget. Anyhow, somewhere out here. And also in Europe. She has a couple. And so I said, how about introducing, at least in the first year, some yoga into it? And she goes, well, they're going to have to get mat. We got to buy mats. I said, well, they can get their own mat. But it makes, you see everybody always walk into a yoga class with their mat.
Yeah.
And that'll make them feel good about it,
Yeah.
And so and,
I got my mat.
yeah, and so she introduced yoga and a little bit of meditation. Of course, the shavasana at the end, that kind of stuff, and breathing, and some of the yogic breathing.
Yes. The
Kapalabhati
pranayama.
and different things.
Yes.
And students, were a little hesitant at first, but because they're young, 18, 19, 20. Some of them are 22 coming in. They're a little older there in Europe. But, still young for this stuff. And maybe some of them never had any introduction to it. So it was very basic. And then the second, it's a 3-year tier, a 3-tier program.
Okay.
3-year program. And the second year still does yoga, a little more advanced, some sun salutations, all the different things. And then maybe even we call it the Achtbrücke in German, but the 8 treasures of Qigong.
Oh, neat.
And all that gets into the second and third year. The third year is mainly the culmination of it all, which is we have a rhythm section, and Annette and I co-teach it, and it's usually somewhere between 3 and 4 or 5 singers being the lead and learning how to lead, how to do intros and endings, and also still incorporate presence
Yes.
and awareness
Yes.
and communication and all these things. So it's a wonderful part of my program, I think, because I find a lot of schools don't have this, my jazz singers get an hour and a half with me. They get a half an hour with a vocal, classical technician that gives them a repertoire and technique, breathing and all that. I do more a still style and more modern vocal technique, along with classical breathing and all that stuff with them. And the classic technique teacher is also American that's been there for about 40 years. She's been teaching the jazz singers since Sheila was there. And when she started the program in 1990, really, is when Fran Lubon started. And she was a star at the Opera House. She was the star, beautiful blonde opera singer, soprano, But so she just loved jazz singers, so she got roped into this and has been there teaching them. And still there. She should have retired. I'm keeping her on because she's really great. She's only 72 or 73 this year, but totally can sing and takes online courses in Alexander technique with vocal technique, and really always continue educating herself, continuing to educate herself, and pass it on to the students. So the students have those, plus this English course that she teaches, which I have to do English a lot there with myself.
Okay.
And I started this English course a little bit, maybe 5 years into me being there, because it's a lot of work. I don't have any mother tongue English-speaking people.
Oh, my goodness.
They're all from other countries. So,
Yes.
they can speak English, but, when it comes to singing Great American Songbook and jazz standard English songs, they really are soaking it up.
Yeah.
They're loving the program. They see how much we offer, and there aren't many schools like this that offer all this.
Totally.
Wow.
So we're very proud of our department and our Jazz Institute. It's really one of the best ones for foundation also in Europe. A lot of them are more into free jazz and pick your own courses. We're getting more into picking your own courses. Eventually it takes time to change curriculum, but there's going to be a set amount that's foundational, and then they can jump off and choose paths like a lot of other universities do now. So we keep updating the university. It's really wonderful, Ed Partika is the head of our department. He's an American, but he's lived in Europe now for probably 35 or 40 years, I think, somewhere around there, 30 plus, 35 plus.
Wow.
Yeah, and comes out of Rob Brookmeyer style, big band arranging, and Maria Schneider, that more modern approach.
Yes.
But he knows Basie and, Ellington and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So everybody gets a good foundation.
Wonderful. Gosh.
Yeah. All the singers all the instruments take piano for non-majors for 2 years, and everyone takes rhythm for 2 years. The first year is really, reading rhythm, singing it, tapping it, playing it on a little pad or whatever. And the second year is drum set.
Oh my gosh!
I have to
Seriously?
say, I
That's
introduced
something
that
missing.
part.
Oh my God! Well,
Not
can
to
you?
pat myself on the back, but
Yeah, really.
that one was, I brought that up. It's like, well, what if we would break it up, and then the second year, everybody play a little drum set.
Oh my God!
And you have to see the difference in everybody. The rhythmically,
Wow.
their
I bet.
time is better. They know grooves and
Well,
whatever.
can you tell us a little bit about your drumming experience? Because I know that you said that when you were, I don't know, a kid, or
Percussion,
that you
yeah.
were, and that you were also doing like using the, what do you call it, a kit, the drum
drum
kit,
kit.
right? I know Daniel has a
Drum
little
kit. Well,
experience.
I mean, sometimes I have a drum kit at home, so I like to sit and play with Duke Ellington, Ray Brown.
Oh my God! Okay, my fantasy, honestly, like which I didn't answer the other day when we were interviewing somebody else.
This is
and we're
good
going to
time.
ask you this question later.
Yep.
But my fantasy would be actually to play drums. If
Yeah.
I could just blink my eyes and like
You just have
do
to do it.
anything. Oh my
do
God!
it.
Really?
Just start with the ride cymbal.
It's true.
Bang,
So
bang,
much damn fun.
bang, bang,
Yeah.
bang, bang.
Okay.
Do an easy. I think I'm pretty sure it's Duke Ellington, Ray Brown. Is that the one? And there's no drummer, and it's fantastic.
Okay.
I
You're
think it's
inspiring me.
Yeah, I have to think now. I haven't
Think of
done
it,
that in a
yeah.
while.
Right.
But I sometimes play for the singers, or whatever, because they all have to play a little. Not play and sing. I'm not making piano players who play and sing.
Right.
But they have to play enough to
Yep.
accompany, because a lot of them will go into a teaching degree.
Okay.
Right.
So they have to.
Yeah.
There's no money anymore for accompanists, for vocal
Really?
teachers. Not much. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think why I got this gig, because all the teachers before me needed accompanists, and they were starting to cut back on that in all
Right.
universities.
Yep.
So it's just a given that we have to know more anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I think it's such an incredible idea that you had to have people play drums there last year. And when I watch, I did this cute little recording of your hands, because I was in the audience the other night, and the first time when you came out and did, I just found out about Love on the first. I mean, like I almost fell off my chair because she had said she was going to open with this other song, and then I heard that, and I was like, but
Second set I was going to open up with.
okay. Got it. So I videoed your hands. Unfortunately, I was too shy to get the video up on that one, on Just Found Out About Love, but I have all the other songs. I think pretty much got your hands on most of them, because I was seated a position where that's about all I could see.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, your rhythm, your sense of rhythm and timing, oh my God. I mean, that actually, I'm glad I got your hands, because that's a lesson for me.
Okay, nice.
I mean, seriously. And,
Great.
oh God.
Yeah, I mean, drums is a big part of it. I like growing up and playing all this different things, snare drum, even bass drum, whatever it was. You're in a full orchestra a lot of times, and when you have a conductor, we had a monster of a conductor.
What does that mean?
Well, not
Okay.
like
I
Leonard
see the look on.
Bernstein.
Yeah, I see
He's
the
a
look on your
monster.
face. Okay.
Yeah.
This
Different
guy
monster.
was a freak.
Okay.
He freaked out every rehearsal, and if you missed a half a beat,
Oof.
he would almost throw his baton at you. He threw music stands at the windows
Whoa.
and scared the shit out of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
I mean, he was out of his mind. He'd turn beet red. And then after he retired, years later, I saw him in a Kmart or something.
Yeah.
He was nice as pie.
What?
He was like a different person. He was burnt out.
Yeah.
He'd done it too long
Yeah.
when we were kids. So, yeah. So, but that,
Well, there's nothing like feeling a little fear to make you be able
Yeah,
to
I
focus.
will hit all the notes this
Not
time.
actually
Yeah.
like, I don't know about you, but when I'm filled with fear of
Yeah.
something like that happening, it makes it really difficult to perform and
that's
focus.
what I had. Besides having a stage mom, I had to deal with this, and I dealt with it in my early 30s because I was nervous, and I had a hard time with audiences
Yeah.
up until then. I was shy.
Yeah.
So going through some therapy and really working through like becoming an adult,
Yeah.
sort of, and doing things for my own responsibility and my own reasons
Yes.
is when it started to change. Not because I hope my mom likes what I'm doing and
Right.
all that, or I hope the drummer calls me back.
Yeah.
Everything was like
So
needing recognition.
It's for you.
Right. So
Yeah.
the therapist really did help you.
I had one and only I had, and I still use the tools she gave me. She was great. Yeah.
Is there any specific tool that you could like?
Well, one, which works in a lot of different situations. She said, just remember, hysteria is history. So when you're in a situation and it's a little bit hysterical, it's not about now, ever.
Yeah.
It's about one person's history
Yeah.
being laid out
Mhm.
and the other one being so, drawn into it if you allow yourself, and then
Yes,
it makes
yeah.
it worse. And it's really not about now at all. It's something that happened before that's built up or just relates to something in the past
Situations. Yeah,
that doesn't
totally.
have anything to do with you.
Yes.
Or you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
it's
So
hard.
that kind of took this, it put it in, it gave you a different perspective
I-
and helped you maybe stay inside of yourself and as
Well-
opposed to getting pulled into the.
I left that meeting, and she was up on like 91st and whatever that, Lexington or one of the, not Lexington. It was on the west side, so not West End, but over on the other side of Broadway. Anyhow,
Yeah.
So I can't remember. It's been so long. So I walked over to Broadway, and I started walking down Broadway around 90 something,
Yeah.
and I had a bit of a out of body experience.
Wow.
I could see myself walking down Broadway and all these people, it's packed
Yeah.
sidewalks.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm just one little person,
Yeah.
making my way down that sidewalk, and everybody else has their own deal.
Yep.
We all do. We're all in this together. And, the next person I meet, if they bring a bad vibe to me, I'm just going to turn it around and smile. And I went in to get a bottle of water back then, in a little deli, and the person was grumpy as hell, ringing me out, didn't look at me or anything. I said, I brought it up, I put it down, I said, yeah, just this. And she goes, just that? And I said, I'm like,
Wow, New York.
yeah, just
this.
and I looked at her, just this.
Yeah.
And I smiled, and she looked at me and went, oh,
wow.
okay.
Yep.
Mind-blowing 10 minutes that I had. It all happened in like less than 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
And I realized. And then I started reading up on Sufi and energies and,
Yeah.
all this sort of Buddhist stuff. And I just dove into it. I got into yoga and meditation and at that time and just, realized that everything is an energy and we have the control to turn anything around.
Yeah. Wow. I love it.
Yeah. So
Thank
when
you
I
for
go,
saying that.
and that's the thing about performing is like, I used to get nervous. So like, okay, maybe it's nervousness or maybe it's just that I'm excited.
Yes.
It's how we
Yes.
think of it.
We can reframe that energy in
Yeah.
a different way. Totally.
It's just how. How is a big word with me because, or why, but how is even bigger because you can talk to somebody, but it's how are you talking to them? You can run. How are you running? Are you running correct? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like how is a
Yes.
huge one with me.
So how? That's interesting. I think of the word alignment when you say that question. Like, what are we aligning ourselves with? Like, how are we moving through space? Whether
How.
it's
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're getting out there now.
I love it. Yeah.
Wherever you are today, sitting in your car or in your room,
Yeah.
getting those energies now.
Yeah.
That's great.
No road rage, people. No
Oh,
road
oh,
rage.
yeah. That car
No
that just
computer
cut you
rage.
off,
Smile.
give them a chance.
Yeah.
The truth is, you don't know. Maybe they have to rush to the hospital or something for
True.
an emergency. You never know what people's deal is
Right.
in that scenario.
And
even
that's
in
exactly it, yeah.
car situations. Yeah. That's
Then I
always
just veer away from them.
Yep. Just keep clear.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
yourself safe. That's really
Boy.
what you can do.
I'm left in this space right now,
Yeah.
mentally calm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just about to ask you something, and it has evaporated from my mind.
That's okay.
Which is probably a
Easy.
fine
Well,
thing, but
I was going to say that since we touched on this earlier, it does seem like you use a little bit of meditation practice before you go on stage. Like you said, 10 minutes basically. Seems like you're clearing your mind and giving yourself a chance to
5 or
kinda
10
just-
minutes before, yeah.
Right.
I just do some breathing. I do a shoulder exercise at the moment because I've got a frozen shoulder,
oh,
and it's helping that.
That's great.
And
Yeah.
it changes, but mainly it's just to center. You know,
Yes.
because you never know what was going on before, and
right.
it's hard to just. I used to think I didn't need this 5 or 10 minutes, but as I get older too, I think there's just so much more in our heads that we have to make space.
Yeah.
And then, so mainly what I do is just warm up the voice, little sirens and little slack and a little buzzing in the dressing room or in the bathroom sometimes.
Yep, been there.
And just doing that gets me on my breath, and I'm thinking about what the first song is, and it's just simple stuff,
Yeah.
but mainly the exhaling long
Yes.
is when
effective.
I really start to find my feet on the ground. So when I can get to that, sometimes that's just before we're stepping out on
Right.
stage too.
Yeah, behind.
Just behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Totally.
A couple little nice breaths, and hugs from my guys or girls when I'm playing with them.
Yeah.
That's always like we're connecting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. What it's like, what makes a gig for you really enjoyable? The people that you're playing with, and
If we're all in communication. I mean, there's some people that are in their own zone, listening to themselves. I have to say, thankfully, I haven't had that situation in quite a while. I've centered myself around, or I've been centered around, because some of them weren't my choices
yes,
in the first place, but it ends up being a good one.
That's
anyhow.
good, yeah.
So it just ends up being wherever I go. Italy, I have a rhythm section. Denmark, Holland, there's different rhythm sections. Because I can't bring a band. It just doesn't, it's not cost effective anymore.
right.
And
So-
all those people are pretty much, on the same wavelength,
Yeah.
pretty much during the gig. That some of them get a little tired and they tune out a little bit, but they're there,
Yeah.
basically.
Definitely.
And I think if I'm there, it helps them be there.
Yeah.
That also is part of being a leader, I think. It's not tuning out,
Yes.
because it's like, you wouldn't do that if you had a party at your house.
No.
All of a sudden, everybody's having a good time. You just go up and go to bed, and not say goodnight, or just sit and watch TV.
Yeah,
in some
do your own
room.
thing over somewhere
You know,
else.
I mean,
yeah.
you just wouldn't do that. So, I mean, just to try to be there, and why not? I mean, look at what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, we're making music for a living. Sort of,
Yeah.
I mean, I teach too, but that's also music. So I have to be. That's the other thing I am is very thankful, and I feel very fortunate. So I try to be thankful every day. To be aware of that.
Yes.
Because I could be sitting in some office,
Yep.
organizing something or whatever, and
Fixing
hard enough to
computers.
sit in my office and organize my own life, let alone somebody else's.
We don't need that.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so talking about conversations, musical conversations. I was watching you the other night with Kira Tana, drummer, and Peter Barchet on bass, which was just so much fun.
So much fun.
So much fun. And so I'm wondering, there may be some people listening who don't really necessarily know that much about jazz. Do you want to say something a little bit about jazz improv, like what that's like and the conversations? And I was thinking that we could even do like a little experiment if you were up for it, like a little, conversation back and forth to,
Okay.
I don't know. Do you want to say something about
Yeah, I mean,
jazz improv? And
Jazz improv. Most people, when you ask them, what is improv? Like when you're playing jazz, and they think, oh, it's freedom. It's just doing what you want. Like the average person, maybe not a musician.
Right.
But the more of the non-musicians that listen to music and get really into jazz, they realize it's a little more to it. Yeah. And there's a lot of foundation. It's a language. I mean, the language of song is learning repertoire. The language of improv is learning repertoire, solos from great soloists, many jazz standard heads, meaning melodies, learning to sing a drum solo of Philly Joe Jones or Max Roach or many.
Wow.
Just being able to sing and maybe and copy along with some of the greats to get some of that foundational rhythm and language of improv. And once you have a bit of that foundation, you can start communicating. It's like any other language. If you don't have some of the basics, like I can do a lot of languages, at least the menu in countries.
Yes.
And that gets me by there,
Yeah.
that's about it. And then I'm learning Deutsch, German,
Yep.
where I live, and I can just get by. It's
Yeah.
difficult. I'm mainly speaking English, teaching and everything, so... And I travel a lot to other countries, so everybody speaks English. But with improv, it's once you have a bit of a foundation, and even if you don't, you can still improvise.
Yes.
You know, but when it comes to a certain style of music, you sort of, to get good at improv, you have to get that foundational background in order to play with it and have freedom.
Yes.
So you have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
That's the old rule anyhow. But yeah. So for me, when I'm teaching improv, at least first-year students, they're learning some basic solos from Clifford Brown, Lee Morgan, even Julia Bop by Sarah Vaughan, and Ella Fitzgerald, Blue Skies, and Chet Baker's It Could Happen to You, and all these sort of solos that are doable at that time. They're not long, maybe, or they're at least not fast
Right, not
notes,
crazy.
and they can get it, and just by listening. I used to have sheets and papers and hand them out, and they read it. I stopped that a dozen years ago.
Because
And
reading transcriptions is totally different than listening and trying to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why
Well, no,
I even started teaching that way years ago.
Sure.
Because I didn't learn that way. I didn't go to university. I didn't have teachers. I learned it from the records, and I only learned it from copying it. And then, of course, looking at a real book and thinking, okay, he's playing all this stuff over a what? B flat 7, okay. You know, and then I'd sort of, just copy it by ear, mainly. And I'd try writing it down. Now that I look back at it all, it's like, you can't even read it.
Yeah.
You know? and some of I got better at transcribing later, but I didn't ever really transcribe that much. But really, I thought one day, why don't I just go back to how I learned? So
Yeah.
the minute I did that, the singers come in, like, in a week, they've got a whole solo done.
Wow.
They're much quicker than I was back then, because everything's here now.
That's true.
And we have
it's
the
on
slow
their
down app
playlist,
and-
and they're listening to it 50 times a day.
Yeah.
And then by a week's time, they come in and they can sing it.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then the next week, they write it.
Oh, wow.
Pretty
nice.
much. Maybe
Okay,
it's,
I'm
maybe
inspired.
It's for some of them, everybody's at a different level of learning, quick and fast. But
Yeah.
some of them take 3 or 4 weeks, whatever. But usually it's in a week or two, it's done. And just learning, to sing like a horn. I
Yeah.
have that ensemble at Stanford, which is singing with a horn section and singing with them and blending and no words, just singing syllables and finding the syllables that match the instrument and the song and
Yeah.
all that. So,
Neat.
yeah, but with Akira and Peter, we have a great time improvising because we have a similar language. And that's what I think when you start to learn your own language or learn a language, you go to
Yeah.
Berkeley, they can pick and you can do fusion, you can do straight ahead, you can do whatever. It's whatever your love of what style you want to learn. I do believe the bebop and the hard bop and the earlier languages and even Dixieland and early jazz is very important. Those fusion people like Pat Metheny, that's what they started with.
Yeah.
They didn't start out sounding like Pat Metheny
Right,
in
right.
1970,
Yeah.
So students nowadays have probably a better sense of that now. So there are a lot more younger students or even older adults that get into jazz that know that the foundations are very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why we sort of
Yeah.
still go to the basic solos and stuff because it
Yeah.
is a foundation.
Yeah.
And once you have that, like I said, you can go into any style. I've played a lot of different styles, but I just love the bebop, hard bop, sort of the more contemporary stuff right in the 70s, early fusion, Chick Corea. And that's where I sort of stay because I just love that style.
Yeah.
And you could live a lifetime and still not get where you want to get with it.
Yeah.
And I used to
Explore it
think,
forever.
well, I have to pick a style, and then I have to progress to this style, and then I have to go into the modern. Well, not really. And I tried it, and it didn't, pump my heart as much
Yeah.
as, like, swinging,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or great ballad, Shirley Horn. I mean,
Oh, God.
all this great stuff. I just love it, and I know that's what I'm going to do, even though I progress through that style.
Yes.
I mean, on the new record, there's Alan Broadbent and Bob DeRoe, and they write in that style. This is what I think students also have to understand is you could be a Dixielander at 14 years old and love it and stay in it for the rest of your life, but grow in it
Yeah.
and expand that style.
Yeah.
Which they are now.
Wow.
There are a lot of retro young bands that are doing like on New Orleans on the street. I just saw it on Facebook this morning, some band, and they're young. Girl trumpet player and clarinet player, guy clarinet and a bass and a tuba. Sorry, not a bass, a tuba, and all this. And they're playing really early jazz, and they're loving it. And they sound great. And you could see they're making little arrangements of it, and it's progressing that style.
Yes.
So whatever style it is you like, if you just expand your musicality and yourself through it, it's going to expand the genre. So
Well said.
I happen to, yes,
I
absolutely.
got off the path there,
No, there's
Yeah.
all these little tiny little, networks off the path, and they all are the same, coming from the same
coming from the
place.
same
Totally.
place, pretty much.
But I just want to say, I happen to love your aesthetic. I just love your style. I love your aesthetic. It's
Thank
just
you.
like, yeah.
Well, I've come out of listening to people that have great aesthetic, like Ahmad Jamal, Shirley Horn, Red Garland. I just love their tasteful, Hank Jones' taste of touch, and Tommy Flanagan and Bill Evans, all those great. I just gravitated toward those, and I think if one listens to that a lot, it gets in you.
Yeah.
It does.
It's like
Yeah.
a certain style that one projects because you've put it in. And that's the thing about listening. That's the number one thing, that if anyone wants to go into anything musically, or I guess almost, you have to listen to whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's like
Be
picking
able
up,
to do
Yep.
in the music.
Totally.
Sorry?
No, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
like picking up an accent from
Yeah.
a different place that you travel
Exactly.
to. You're there long enough, you'll pick it up.
It's a language.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy. Oh, so I know some people who are professional jazz musicians that actually don't really listen to a lot of jazz anymore. Maybe they perform a lot or whatever, but I'm wondering, what about you? Do you listen to music in the car, or what, do you listen to music much?
I listen a lot with my students. I listen on my way to school. It's about a 25-minute drive to and fro. So I put on a record for about a month and just listen to the same thing.
Oh, wow.
All month, which is like 3 to 4 days a week if I'm going to school. I don't listen while I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I try to keep it clear
Yeah.
and try to be present, because I'm working on posture while I'm carrying luggage and all this stuff, so I have to work on that stuff. And it's a nice break anyhow.
Yeah.
But when I'm listening at home, which is usually when I have people over for dinner, or sometimes when I'm cooking, I like to put music on. I put either jazz or classical. That's about it. And usually instrumental jazz.
Yeah.
More than vocal jazz.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because I do a lot of vocal listening with my students.
Yeah.
And also with whoever gave me their CD,
Right.
in or for a month
Yeah.
or whatever. So, but when I do listen to vocal jazz, maybe it's not even jazz. I like Brazilian. I'm at home on Sundays, putting on some nice
Yeah.
Joyce or Leila Pinheiro. I love her. Elise Regina. All those I love. Rosa Passos. Another new favorite.
Yes, I just discovered her.
Yeah, I did. I saw her in New York a lot when I lived there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she had just come on the scene pretty much late 90s or whatever, and at least in New York.
Yeah.
It was one of her first visits, I think, and early 2000, I forget. And sort of lost touch again, and then I go back into her and stuff. And she's so authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
She's really
I just
real
love her
and- yeah.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I listen to a
Interesting.
wide variety.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Daniel, did you want to ask?
I did, yeah.
Okay, go for it. I'm
A
gonna
really,
write it down.
really quick question, actually, or maybe it'll turn into a long one. Since you've played so many different venues and places kind of around the world even, I was curious if you had one that sticks out to you as sort of like a really special spot, or something that really meant a lot to you. Maybe it was like the most fun place you've ever been, or just, like a very...
Well, I have to say one of my favorite places, at least in the Northwest.
Sure.
I mean, I have two real favorites.
Let's hear it.
And one of the first ones is the Bach Dynamite and Dance.
Oh.
Because it was one of the first venues I played out here.
Yeah.
And I just thought, how cool of a place is this? And Pete was alive then, so he was a grumpy old guy, but he always treated me nice and always gave me a gig, like at least every year or once a year, or once every other year if I came to teach at Stanford.
Yeah.
And yeah, I dug that place. Somehow it was just old and funky, and it was new for me to know of a place that was so neighborhood-like or community-based, like really a community of people that went there a lot, you know. And it was Sunday afternoon. It was a gorgeous sun, and the beach was right there. I just thought, oh my God.
That's cool.
And this piano was great, and the sound was fun, and always fun gigs. So, and always a good audience.
Yeah.
That was really one of my favorites. The next one up in this way is the North Coast
Oh,
Brewery,
yeah.
the Sequoia Room, which I hope is still going to be going in a while. It's having some issues for some reason, but I'm hoping to get back there next summer because another intimate room, always a great audience, feels like a real jazz club in there.
Yeah.
You know, and you're up in the middle of almost nowhere. These kinds of out of the way
Yep.
places
Yeah.
are sort of what I enjoy. And yeah, those are my two favorite around here.
And what about not around here,
Yeah,
like in
well-
New York or
Well, New
Europe or
York,
anywhere?
New York, I like playing at Mesro.
Yeah.
It's a really small, intimate place, and usually a duo or trio
Perfect.
gig. I always love Jazz Standard. It's funny, I have 2 live recordings from there, and I can't get another gig.
Grammy nominated albums, I might add.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what the deal is there, but I mean, they have a different repertoire, I think, almost in a way, too, there, when it comes to styles of jazz. Maybe a little more world and modern. So maybe they just don't
Interesting.
want to swing it. I don't know. Or it's just difficult. You know, everybody wants to play it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy that room a lot, playing there. I used to like Smoke. It's small also, and a lot of my fan base was disturbed that after the first set they'd have to leave because there's a turnover, which
see.
is a great thing for Smoke. I mean, come on, give it up.
Right.
But I lost some you know, if I played there, then some of them wouldn't come, and so I don't know. Actually, the newest love of jazz club there is Birdland Theater.
Oh, yeah. When did that open? It
Just opened a year ago
Yeah.
or so, and I just played there in April, I think it was, early May, and fantastic room.
Cool.
Birdland upstairs I played many times, and it's quite large. A little too big almost for my audience, I guess, or many people's, because it's hardly ever filled, other than like, say, major artists. And then so that's why I think they got the downstairs up and running, because it seats about 75 to 100.
Oh, nice.
And perfect. Packed. The nights
Yep.
I was there, I had 4 nights and had a different special guest each night.
Wow.
And it just was really, really fun. That's really probably my favorite venue at the moment there.
Cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am wondering, and you know, I don't know this question. I'm wondering how music, like just being a musician and performing and teaching and doing everything that you do, how has it? I don't know. I want to say I don't quite know the way to ask this, but how has it changed you, or how has it kind of contributed to you being the person that you are? Like, what have you learned from teaching, for performing, like as a human being? That's
Empathy and compassion, because I mean, especially teaching university level, these are adults, and they have a life. I mean, sometimes us professors or teachers will say our kids, you know, are the kids, you know, but they're not kids.
yeah.
And I think I used to, whatever it was, treat them like kids. And sometimes you sort of have to, a little bit, to be a mentor. That's how more like how I see myself. But the more I've tried to treat them more like an adult, the more and realize that they actually have lives. They have jobs that they have to do to pay for school. You know what I mean? Whatever
Totally.
it's not just school that they do.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, some do. Some, they're only at school. Those are usually the ones we call kids because they're the ones that are usually act like kids. The ones that actually have jobs, have other responsibilities, those are the ones that are actually a bit more mature.
Interesting.
And, you know, but I try to really treat them all as adults and see them as, you know, if they can't make a lesson or something. I used to think, oh, geez, you know. But now it's like, oh, I hope everything's okay, you know.
Right.
And usually it is something like, yeah, my car completely died a minute at the red light, just as I got off the highway. Because some of them drive from Slovenia, you know. And they go home for the weekend and they come back and stay for 3 or 4 days and then go back to Slovenia, you know.
Yeah.
It's only an hour or two drive, so they get to go home and have mom's home cooked meal.
Sure.
That's why there's in some ways still kids
Still kids,
sometimes,
okay.
you know. But some of them have babies and have husbands, and
Yeah.
at 22, 3 years old sometimes, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
So they're adult. You know, those you have to just see each student as a real person, not just a student.
Yeah.
And see that they have things that they have to do in life, and this is just one of them.
Yeah.
And they're not all going to be jazz singers. You know, I've got a couple handfuls through the many years I've taught that are out there doing it. The rest
Totally.
are either working on a festival, volunteering, doing music therapy, or doing something else, you know, in music, maybe just being a manager, running a festival in their hometown of Sofia in Bulgaria, you know,
Yeah.
starting a little music school in Tasmania. I mean, I can think of the former students that
Yeah.
are doing things, and
That's really cool.
you know, they all, and when they're with us for these 4 to 6 years, you know, we have to be, or I feel I have to guide them in a certain way, but I try to allow them to help that guidance.
Yes.
Because when they take responsibility for that, it's going to be stronger for them, for their experience.
Totally.
So, yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
I hope I answered that.
Yeah. Yeah. How about as a performer? I mean, I don't even. It's just a. Like, have you watched yourself change? Like, I know for.
Yeah. Well, I was nervous performing in my late 20s and
Yeah.
even my early 30s. And after this sort of epiphany thing,
Yeah.
it took even some time to bring that on
Yeah.
to the stage, but the working with energies and everything. But, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's all so intertwined.
It is really intertwined. I just want to say, like, for myself, I've noticed it's really. I never realized that I was still as shy as I was, but what I've noticed even just since I've been, you know, just a baby doing this for 7 years, studying, you know, jazz piano and just playing
gigs,
a little bit,
yeah,
doing
yeah.
some gigs now. But what I've discovered is that that I think getting over my fears, like learning how to deal with it, and especially I have to say when I was in school and I had a lot of like embarrassment and shame, especially being, you know, an adult and playing in front of people and just like, these
Yeah.
kids, you know, 18-year-old boys. I was like, oh my God, my hands are shaking. I just have no idea what to do. But, you know, I really had to work with myself with mindfulness and all this to just kind of reorient it, kind of what you were saying, you're reframing what's going on. And like literally like dealing with these intense feelings of shame. I brought this up in another podcast actually, but learning how to deal with that and actually just being okay with, making a fool of myself. For example, now I know this is not relating to you because you know you started in a completely different place, but I guess what I'm trying to say, just giving you an example of. Like now I feel like somehow I'm more liberated in my everyday life just because like I've gone through that process.
Yes.
And I can love myself even though, you know, I may not be the best piano player in the world, you know, but.
We each have our own path.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about teaching too. They all have their own path. And I used to have a bit of a curriculum that everybody followed, but that's opened up so much and every student is individual and it still was when I had a curriculum. I mean, I still have a basic one, you know, but it's not so detailed and it's more open to the individual because everybody has their own path and everybody's on that path at a different place at a different time in their lives. I have some students that are squarely here and very present at 18, 19 years old. And there's no head games.
Yeah.
No question.
No fear of stage 1 I have right now.
Wow.
And she just goes right out there and does it.
Yep.
No qualms, no issues. Really.
Amazing.
And so everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know, but I understand that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just more confident
Mm-hmm.
in allowing myself to be
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
instead of always trying to be for someone else.
Yes, I hear you.
And
that is the key right there
and that
for
with
me
students,
too.
for the young students with the shame and all that stuff, that's still that issue.
Yep, I
which is
agree.
you're
Yes.
still like wanting recognition somehow,
Mm-hmm.
or some gratification or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really need it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do it yourself, it's stronger.
Yeah. Thank you, Dena.
You're welcome. I mean, blah, 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 blah.
I
but-
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Oh, do you have a manager? Do you have somebody who books your gigs, or do you do that yourself?
Well, I have a manager slash friend slash manager slash friend. He was first an agent. When I moved to New York, he booked my trio for jazz cocktail hours at weddings and bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and private events out in Long Island, Connecticut, blah, blah, blah. So, and I was about 30 then,
Mm-hmm.
even late 20s, sorry, 28, around there. 27, sorry, 26. It was about a year after I moved to New York. I met up with him. And he's just a great guy. He was in the club date business as a trumpet player when he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went into booking. And it was the high time of booking for club dates. Club dates mean something else out here. Club dates in New York means weddings,
Okay.
parties, bar mitzvahs, private events.
Gotcha.
And he made a lot of money doing this. He had 10, 20, 30 bands and 10 or 15, 20 different solo pianist singers on all the hotels in New York. I mean, it was a big time. And then the DJs came along and pretty much wrecked it. And he got out of the business, went into the insurance business that he actually went to school for also, besides trumpet.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
he took a turn and gave up all that stuff. And then about 10 years of that, he hooked me up with my insurance. He was an insurance
Nice.
man for a lot of musicians in
Yeah.
New York. So, and then he decided, one day he said, Dena, and I didn't have a manager or an agent or anything. I had like Joel Chris, he's an agent in New York. He would get me about 1 gig a year somewhere in Europe or, somewhere, Cleveland, Ohio, I don't know, something,
Yep.
And this one agent down in Baltimore, Michael Cherigo, who gave me 1 gig a year somewhere. But mainly I just always booked myself. And Jay wanted to manage me. And the managing's different. They don't book gigs. They just manage what's booked. So he thought I needed a little help because I was up to my ears with, I was losing gigs because I couldn't keep up with getting back to people and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So he
right.
said, I'll do that.
Wow.
And I said, well, okay, how much is that going to charge? He goes, you kidding? We'll just see. I'll just help. Kids just love to be back in the business.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
then he started to try to book me, but he's not really, that's not his forte. Because he dealt with people like an insurance agent.
Okay.
He called them my clients, and they didn't like that.
Yeah.
I said, Jay, don't call them. He said, yeah, but they are. I said, no, they're not. They're like people.
Yeah.
But in art and culture. It's not business school, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
So he just couldn't get himself over that, and he just decided, I just want to manage,
Right.
which was fine because I needed help with contracts. and
Yeah.
just the minute I say, I got this booked, here it is, here's the info, he makes a contract, sends it out.
Great.
Thanks,
Nice.
And that happens about 4 or 5 times a year
Nice.
when I'm here in the States,
Yeah.
if I need a contract. So I had one of those back in April, and that's the one for the year. And the rest I book.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that's basically the 2 agents that I get a gig from once a year. Joel Chris about once every 4 years,
Yeah.
and that's it. And I have an agent in Spain
Uh-huh.
who's one of the oldest there. He brought over Sarah Vaughan, Chet Baker, everybody. He's still doing it. A lot of the festivals don't like working through him because he's an old man. So, unfortunately, he doesn't get a lot of his artists in the festivals as much as he used to.
Yeah.
But I get 1 or 2 nice tours every year. And they're all nice gigs, and it's
Nice.
concert venues and festivals,
Great.
and it's fine.
That's great.
So but basically I'm at least 90% booking it myself, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Daniel, we haven't asked Dena yet the question
Oh,
about her first,
That's right.
earliest
That's right.
strong musical, music experience
memory.
listening. Actually, like if you could
Listening.
go back, when your earliest memory, potent memory of listening to music.
Live music or just
Like
record?
anything, like
It
just
could
anything.
be.
It could be live, but
Or it could
your
be a
earliest
record.
memory, I would be surprised if you were at a concert when you were
Yeah, right.
really little,
But you
but
never know.
you
Well,
never
I mean,
know.
One
Never
of
know.
them I can remember because I got into doing this was going to Roberson Center in my hometown, and they had a theater organ in there that came up from the cellar.
Yeah.
And there was a man that played for silent movies.
Yeah.
And it was an old black and white film up there, and you saw him looking at it and playing at it. And I said, I want to do that. So I was probably about 6 or 7, just getting into organ. So I must have been 7.
Right.
And so
You know.
at home at night, my organ had a headphone jack. And my family went to bed at 9 o'clock at night. My dad worked construction. He was up at 4 in the morning, and my mom, whatever. So I had the headphone jack with my big old Sony headphones
Yeah, nice.
and all the lights on the big theater organ in my house. It took up half the living room.
Oh my God.
And I had the TV on, off,
Right.
sound.
That makes
And I'd
sense.
sit there and watch it, and just I loved doing it. Just making
Oh my
music to whatever was on
gosh.
TV.
Yeah.
You know, and then, so by 10 or 10:30, I'd hear my mom yelling, Dena, go to bed! Because all they could hear is thump, thump,
Yeah, like the little noises. Of
tick,
that.
tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
You know, here I thought I was being quiet. I'm like, boom, 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 you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh
But I
my
had a
God.
blast, you
What
know?
wow, that is
So-
such a cool memory. Wow.
So, and then I did actually play for one in an afternoon session at Roberson Center. It wasn't really, I don't even think it was open to the public, but they allowed me to be the one to come up and sing and then watch it and play one. I think it was only
Beautiful.
one.
Wow.
That was fun,
Sweet.
yeah, it was great.
Neat.
So what was that experience like, actually watching the organist play? Did you stay for the whole, were you there for the film itself?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
the whole thing. My
right.
mom was very good at bringing me to anything.
That's
You know,
great.
any venue, any musical situation. She had me in organ competitions, and at the time I was still ice skating too, and she was a former Ice Capades skater, so she was teaching ice skating, and of course my brother and I grew up in that, so I was already into competing also, figure eights and
Yep.
whatever.
Do you have video
know.
of that, by the way?
No, but my mom just showed me a piece that was in the newspaper, and it's us, my mom and I'm behind her. She's got my
Oh.
hand, and I was about 7 or something.
Wow.
And another woman that taught also, and her daughter, and they just have us on the ice rink, just and talking about my mom who was in the Ice Capades, and this other woman who was also semi-professional. So yeah, it was a big feature on my mom and this woman, and the little daughters got in it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, no video though. I don't think. Yeah, if we do, it's not around anymore. Yeah.
I just have one last question. I don't know if, we're going to I've decided to have a medical Qigong master on, as
Yeah.
part of the podcast. And actually, he's going to be doing a workshop here called Qigong healing Qigong for musicians.
Wow.
Yeah. He's literally won gold medals, world
Okay, I need
gold
to get his
medals.
info.
Justin
Yeah.
Eggert, yes, is just the best.
Wow.
Seriously, yeah. And
Great.
he speaks Chinese, by the
Wow.
way, even though he's, American, but he learned Chinese. But anyway, but I was just wondering, so I'm going to probably put the word out on Facebook as well to musician friends, what issues physically do people struggle with, as musicians? And not only maybe physical issues, but also mental, emotional things. Do you have anything, maybe it's you personally or not you personally, but things that you hear that could be helped, you think, by that?
All of it can be helped by that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Great
we incorporate
answer.
Qigong into our third year of and breathing and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we have a 19-year-old bassist that already has shoulders issues, tension, and it cramps up. He wakes up in the morning and it's cramped, and his girlfriend has to
Yep.
massage him out. And he walks a little bit like this, and I know bass players, a lot of them, they're sort of cockeyed like this, the right shoulder, if they're right-handed bass
upright.
players. And drummers have issues with their backs
Their wrists
and their
arms.
necks. Sometimes they're down here
Yeah.
playing, and so we work on all of this postural stuff in the third year. Second year also, but when I'm co-teaching it with Annette, it's a lot of body work. And I think
So
a lot
great.
of that is, everybody has their tensions. I know singers that have tension in their knees, and that was, an issue on one of my singers, or in their hips. They hold their hips forward or back,
Yeah.
or all these different things that are just, well, when it comes to qigong or yoga, it's about centering the spine and getting the body to be in a good position so that everything can work how we need it to, instead of overwork
Right.
in certain spots that make other parts not work.
Yes.
Out of
Yes.
balance. So I totally believe in it.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Great,
wish I could
cool.
be here for that.
Well, who knows? Maybe you will.
If
yeah.
you're around.
Yeah.
Or we could even get him to come to New York.
Yeah,
Well,
there you go.
Yeah.
Another idea.
We'll get into that one. Yeah.
So I had no idea that
I
we've been
know.
on this long.
Yeah.
So
Talking away. That's good.
But I would just like to personally thank you for passing on the tradition of jazz and teaching like you do, and
Yes.
sharing your music and sharing your joy,
Oh, thank you.
as well as coming here and doing this podcast with us.
Oh, I'm excited. I was when you asked me, I was like, oh, great. We need to just spread
Yeah.
Yes.
information in a different way sometimes, not just learn this tone, learn this tone,
Yeah.
learn this
Totally.
solo. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like how does each person's path go? And I think some students sort of, and people in general, fans, they like to know that and
Yeah.
see that everybody is different. And everybody does have maybe a similar path sometimes, but usually it ends up being one's own.
Yes.
It
Definitely.
just is.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Follow that
And
path.
that's the fun journey.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
we're all individual.
We are.
Yeah.
Is there anything we didn't ask you that you would like to?
Yeah, anything
Okay.
you want to touch on? I'm
Can't think of anything at
Okay.
this point. I just thank you for having me.
Oh,
we
our
so
pleasure.
appreciate you on. This has been such
Thank
a delight.
you, yes.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. We have to thank Dena one last time again for coming out, as it's been such a pleasure to have her on and just hear about her kind of history with music and what's been going on in recent events as well. Keep your posture good if you're sitting in the car. That's a great English sentence, by the way. Definitely don't ever use that sentence. So, cool. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.